Thank you so much for joining us on Adobe Live. Really excited to be here. I'm Danielle Morimoto, and I'm a design manager here at Adobe, and I am joined by Samantha Warren. And we're really excited. We're streaming live from San Francisco, so let us know where you're tuning in from. We're going to be talking a bit about how to create better prompts. We know that today on the stream, if you've been tuning in earlier, there's been a lot around generative fill, which is really exciting, but we definitely want to show something different and talk a little bit on this stream about Firefly and how you can use it for client work and just how to better create those prompts. So yeah, I would love if, like, Samantha, you want to introduce yourself to everyone on the stream as well.
Hey everyone, my name is Samantha Warren, and I'm the design director for machine intelligence and new technology, which is like a really big, long way of saying making cool stuff like Firefly. So excited to be here today with you all, and looking forward to kind of the tips and tricks that we've learned with just playing and having fun with Firefly for text to image, but also ideas for how it might actually work into like your client work stream.
Yeah, and I think the cool thing is, like, we have Samantha here, and like, this is like the actual stuff that you're like playing with. So if you have feedback, if you have like ideas of what you want to see, if you have questions, like send them through in the chat. We're here to talk with you all and just be able to kind of riff ideas and like talk about how you're experiencing like creating prompts today. So I see Natalie's joining us from Utah. Hello. Speedy's in the chat. Definitely continue to let us know where you're tuning in from.
Yeah, and we'd love to hear ideas. If you have something that you would like to prompt, or like maybe try combining styles or something wild while we're kind of working through things, we'd love to hear about it in the chat.
Definitely. All right, I mean, with that, I think let's kind of get rolling. I mean, we talked a little bit about how, like, with client work, even just like from the start, it's just like, what is the client's actual like look and feel? Like, how do you help them maybe even define their brand if they don't already have one, so that you know like how to better create prompts and like what it is that you actually want to make. So I think that's like the process we kind of want to start from today.
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting things that I've experienced working with clients is that trying to encapsulate a client's style or evolve it like from a brand that they might previously have, that's one of the most exciting things, but it's sometimes needs a little bit of help. Like sometimes, you can Google stuff or think about words. And I think that's what's interesting with Firefly, or in particular with text to image, taking words, which is the language that we all use in order to communicate things, and using it as a jumping off point, a way to kind of come up with better ideas for your clients to apply and maybe evolve their styles. And so I know we just said a whole lot, but we'd love to kind of take you into Firefly and talk a little bit about what we're thinking with prompting in particular. So today we actually have a client we're going to use as our example, which is the Redwood Grove Music Festival. Music festival time's right around the corner.
Almost summer. Wow.
Summertime. We're here in the San Francisco Bay Area right now, and I think there's a lot of really fun stuff that you can do when you're evolving a client's brand, specifically around like, social media collateral or posters and stuff, and I think Firefly is a really cool way to get started. And so with that, maybe we go ahead and go to Firefly and just start to type in some stuff to get some ideas. One of the things I love about Firefly is the fact that there's these kind of example images here at the beginning. And so you could start very easily by just kind of picking an example image that might feel like something that has to do with your client, for example, like here's this tree, or here's this kind of interesting unicorn. I think starting there actually gives you a prompt to begin with. And so let's actually just try that to begin with. I love this unicorn in a magical grove. We talked about a redwood grove, and so you start to kind of get this interesting lighting and stuff as a potential area to explore. But using kind of these prompts here at the bottom as clues and how you might write a better prompt.
Yeah, and the thing I like about the example ones is sometimes I'm curious, like, what is the word that they use to actually get that? Because maybe I want a very similar look to it, and they can give me ideas as well. So that's also one way if you're trying to figure out, like, what's the exact look that you want to get. Like, this one does look magical, but would that have been the word that I use? I may come up with a couple different words. So I think the examples are really helpful, and then you can kind of riff off of that, or just kind of play around.
And so, for example, I'm just changing one word here to get started. Like, thinking about this in a way to kind of iterate. So we know that our music festival is in a redwood grove, so I've added redwood grove, but I've also noticed kind of like concept art and fantasy here, and that's kind of helping me realize that those are the styles associated with this in order to get kind of this look and feel that I like. So let's generate and see what that brings us just by changing one word. I feel like we have to have like generated
music. And then, yeah, I was like,
so like already you're seeing like a lot of change here, right? Like it's got the same still kind of look and feel around being magical. It's extremely detailed. There's lots of like really interesting aspects of the composition that kind of have unique detail here. But then you also get the redwoods in the background. And so maybe we take our unicorn out and replace it with an amphitheater and a magical redwood grove, because we know that this is going to be a music festival. Let's see what that gives us.
We have
Music.
people coming in from like all over the place. I see people joining us from
Norway?
Norway and Poland. I'm like, wow, Netherlands. Where else? We have the UK, Dominican Republic, all over. Thank you all for joining.
So already I'm getting pretty cool stuff.
Honestly, the amphitheater is really cool because it's still like nature, which is not necessarily what I would have thought to put in there. Like it's kind of growing out of it, which I really like.
It's like really kind of embedded with the imagery and like the landscape here. I love this image here in the bottom left-hand corner where there's actually like a tree creating the amphitheater. So I'm gonna go ahead and just start downloading some of these. And as you can see, when I start downloading them, they actually, if you're not familiar with how Firefly works, there's this ability for us to be able to embed that it is a generated image within the image, which is, I think, one of the coolest things about Firefly. Hit continue, and I'm just gonna start downloading a bunch of these so that I can start to throw them in a library, so when we start actually working on our social media posts, we can bring them all up in context of our apps.
And I think maybe we'll pull up my screen at the same time because I'm really curious, like as you're typing those in, like I kind of want to type something similar and just start to, I think, play with this fact that we want to maybe have maybe the same content, but when we're working with the client, we might want to present them with two different looks and feels. And so again, like I'm also getting very different things like from what you had, and I love like this kind of find similar feature, like if I like one and kind of riff off of that. So I may start to do that and like add to, we have a shared library because we're going to work together on these assets, which would be great, but it'd be good to start to see like if we do want to like have the exact same thing, but I want to make it like winter time, or I want to make it just like a completely different like neon look, you know, versus kind of whimsical, like what do we want that to be?
So right now I have fantasy and concept art down in the bottom right hand corner. What do you have, Danielle? Same thing?
Right now I just have the fantasy. I don't have art selected here, but I may start to just change this up a little bit to see what else I can get from here. So maybe I'll take off fantasy.
I'm gonna actually try layered paper and take off fantasy and see how that kind of compares.
I think I'll do synthwave. I'm really curious, kind of like a very totally different than like the magical kind of feeling.
Yeah,
and
so
maybe I'll do like warmer, like change some of the color tone to something warmer. Let's see. You never know what you're gonna get. I'm like, ooh, okay.
Oh, wow.
Very different look and feel.
Very different. So already we're starting to deviate quite a lot on the style and producing different kind of options, because that's one of the things when working with clients, you know, you wanna be able to give them options, but you wanna be able to also kind of bring them to the best possible options. So being able to narrow it down to lots of really, really good content that they can choose from, I mean, that only like helps in the whole entire process.
Yeah, it's crazy seeing like the one of the both of ours like next to each other. I am wondering like how I might want to refine mine a little bit, because I think my amphitheater is looking very different than your amphitheater, and mine's kind of more of a structure with a cover top, which I might want to give it more detail to try and refine it a little bit more. So I might say like an open amphitheater and just see if that helps it.
Yeah, let's see what that does. And I'm actually gonna add people to mine because I feel like it does kind of look empty right now. Yeah. So in an amphitheater, a crowded.
Oh, that helped mine a lot, actually.
Ooh,
so I have less coverage on it. Some interesting ones.
Let's try a crowded amphitheater, see what that gives us. But I mean, I think a big part of what we're really trying to explore here is how like very small changes in the way that you start to write prompts can really drastically enhance the number of options, the number of variations and styles that you can come up with. So wow, this kind of flattened out the entire scene, but I love how we've got this sort of winter scene in the bottom left-hand corner that I didn't even really intend to have. But we have much more of a Coliseum kind of feel, I think. Maybe a crowded music amphitheater with a band. Let's see how that gets where that gets us. Oh, wow, I see we have people joining from Germany and Sweden and Australia.
Midnight in Sweden. Wow, thanks for tuning in so late.
Yeah, what are you doing up so late?
Oh, there you go. You got a little bit of a different kind of structure there.
Oh yeah, this is.
I kind of like that. I mean, you have people from behind a little bit more. It's just like a totally different composition that you can start to play with on that.
And I think, like, I really am digging this kind of layered paper texture, but I'm wondering if we can even play that up more to feel a little bit more illustrative. So I'm gonna actually, sometimes, as you can see here in the bottom, I actually have layered paper as the style that I've chosen. But one tip that I've kind of picked up on is that if you actually can like repeat it in the prompt itself, you get a more enhanced version of the style. So my syntax isn't great. A crowded music amphitheater with a band in a magical redwood grove, extremely detailed, layered paper. I'm gonna type actual layered paper and see how that actually enhances this.
Yeah, and I was really just in mine when I started to fill it with people. I also got like a very similar composition, which is nice in case we want to do like more like comparison against ours, but just different looks and feels.
Yeah, so wow, it's really kind of taking on two different looks and feels, but still, again, similar composition. And the layered paper effect, as you can see, is kind of doubled up. It's like super,
oh, wow.
There's a lot of depth being shown. I'm actually not sure what I'm about to get, but I'm gonna put layered paper in twice and see if that even gives us more specificity.
And I feel like when you do, sometimes like putting, I don't know if it makes a difference, but like sometimes I have like, you'll see like in my prompt, like a comma, and then I'll write something else, and then a comma just to kind of separate and kind of group certain things that I really want to be specific about. So like extremely detailed on mine, right? I had like the comma extremely detailed, I think you do as well. But then if I want like layers as well, or like ingredient colors, I might just put a comma and then add that extra. So it doesn't have to all be like one sentence. You can also add commas to try and help like break it up.
So there's really a lot more depth that's being shown now that I've put in layered paper twice. So this is maybe a tip we're kind of discovering on the fly here, but if you double up the actual prompt, you start to get even more extreme versions of that particular style being applied to the image. And so I think this is a really cool look. It's starting to feel very like just kind of like stylistic.
It looks really cut out, and I feel like when you added an extra layer, it actually like removed a little bit of the detail. Like it's still detailed, but in a very different way. Like the people don't have as much kind of variation within themselves. They're like abstracted people, and then there's just a bunch of layers, which is cool.
Yeah, it feels almost like it has been hand cut and like put together.
Yep.
And so I also like the real warm colors. I feel like there's something kind of psychedelic about the vibe that you've got going on. And so maybe we continue to move down that direction kind of as two different options.
Yeah, and I just decided to change from extremely detailed to extremely simple because I'm just really curious kind of what I'm gonna get with that. Again, I think that kind of flattened mine a little bit as well.
Flattened it, but I really like that kind of blue that's happening in the background.
Yeah, up here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as we continue to do this, I mean, I think there's a lot of interesting ways for us to continue to explore in this way, but I'm gonna actually start to add a few more of the styles over on the right to see how that actually changes things up, because I think that's really the power in Firefly. Writing a good prompt is one part of the equation, but like adding different styles to the prompt actually is this kind of secret power that you have within Firefly in order to like just add a little bit of maybe unexpected serendipity to what it is you're getting. And that's partially what I find really valuable about this for working with clients, is that when you're working with clients, you don't always necessarily want to give them something like predictable. You want to surprise them. You want to like exceed expectations.
Yeah, and I saw that Nova was asking the chat like if spelling and grammar matters. I think sometimes you'll still be able to type something through, but it will let you know like if you spelled something and it isn't able to get it, you'll get that error message so you can go back through. And even when I spelled amphitheater wrong, and I think yours maybe had it wrong for a little while, you'll see it underlined, so you will know kind of what word, and you can kind of correct that for your prompt as well.
And I mean, I actually don't know the technical background for this, but I've had lots of misspelled words go through just fine. I think there's a little bit there's a little bit of the AI kind of doing some inference for us in that regard.
I'm kind of liking this one too. I have still like the simple, but this one actually became like a really colorful, like a lot of different colors in here. I'm liking like the shape of the amphitheater in this one as well. If we are doing music festival, because I do feel like some of them were really magical and kind of like abstract like amphitheaters, and so I did want something that feels maybe a little bit more realistic if we are going to use this for like actual like, you know, social.
And I love that one because it feels very like if, you know, this is a music festival in the Bay Area. Golden hour is so beautiful. So golden hour is the time right before the sun goes down in San Francisco, and it really casts a beautiful light and shadow across everything. And so it feels very, very much like that kind of vibe you would get if you were at that amphitheater during that period of time.
I like that, yeah.
I'm actually gonna go ahead, I'm realizing right now we're doing social media like as the kind of the example or the concept that we're generating in order to, you know, put forward these ideas for our client. And so I noticed that we've been working in landscape, but I'd probably want to do a square because we're going to definitely do some Instagram post here. So I love that up in the upper right-hand corner, if you're not familiar with this with Firefly, you can actually change the aspect ratio really easily. It's just this drop down. You can do landscape, portrait, square, or widescreen. And so just to kind of give a better idea of what it is going to look like when we actually start to apply it in context, switching it to square is a very fast way to get that kind of compositional insight before necessarily bringing it into your app.
Yeah, the one on the very right-hand side has, like, the people have so much kind of texture. You want to make them a little bigger?
Yeah.
I'm curious.
Oh, so
interesting. It almost looks carved.
It does. It looks like woodcut almost. Yeah, I think there's something fun about that. So I'm going to download that one as well. I'm going to download a bunch of these, and so we can start to kind of put them into actually Photoshop and download them and add some additional text and stuff. And so, okay, we have now kind of two very clear styles, but you know, what happens when you need some ideas around this for like a brand, for example? And so one of the things I've always really enjoyed doing is trying to get creative and thinking outside the box for the words you use to describe a brand. So I'm actually going to go over to Photoshop for a moment. I've set up these artboards to kind of help in defining some of the different, like creating space to define some of the different styles. But I have over here on the left the text and copy for the festival that we're going to actually be using. And so a lot of times what I do is I'll actually start with text, even in my Photoshop file, just think about like, what are some other ways to get outside of the box in describing what it is we're doing? And so I have these questions I go to all the time. Like, you know, what if this particular music festival had a celebrity spokesperson? Who would be the celebrity spokesperson? And that sounds like a really weird question to ask, but the reason I ask that is because when you start to think about things in terms of describing a person versus a thing or an event or a brand, you actually get more creative words that can go in your prompt. So I know this is, bear with me, this is a real stretch, but like, if this particular music festival was a celebrity spokesperson, who do you think it would be, Danielle?
Ooh, I know, as soon as you said that, I'm like, okay, how many celebrity names do I know? Do you have some options? Anyway, also in the chat, please, if you have like celebrity spokespeople for this, let us know.
Who do you think of when you think of like redwoods or like camping, like glamping? California could be maybe part of it. I mean, that's part of what's really interesting about prompting is the words that you use can actually really help a lot in kind of coming up with an interesting idea. And I think, you know, a person might be a really interesting place to start. So I'm just thinking about California. There's like, you know, the California bear. There's a bear on the California flag. Are you familiar?
That I am familiar with, thank goodness. Yeah, I'm familiar with the bear.
Who's a famous person from California? Steph Curry.
Oh, okay. If we're talking sport, yeah, okay. Steph Curry absolutely runs this place.
So tell me a little bit about Steph Curry. What's something you think about with Steph Curry?
Words to describe Steph Curry, just the general associations.
Yeah.
I think joy, I think playful. Let's see, what else?
He's tall.
He's tall.
Like redwoods.
There we go, yep.
There's no wrong answers here.
Steffi boy.
He's fast.
Yeah, he's versatile.
Versatile.
Best there ever was. No. I'm like, okay, where's the describe him?
I mean, honestly, though, you could say goat. You could say goat.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so here are some words that
underrated. I mean, now I'm on a roll. Now I'm like, you can't stop me. I'm just going to talk about Steph Curry for the rest of the stream.
Okay, so we've got some adjectives here that we might not have used when thinking about the original prompt. And so we can actually take those over and start to paste them in to our Firefly prompt. And again, there's no wrong answers. This is just part of brainstorming, right? So like a crowded, joyful. So we start to just add these in, pepper in the different adjectives. Joyful music, amphitheater, with a band in a magical tall, Redwood Grove. Maybe include just words, just kind of add them in, playful. I'm gonna throw versatile in there and just see what that does. And extremely detailed. Let's see how that actually changes things. And again, this is kind of just an experiment. I'm just like throwing these ideas out there.
Like how Luca had put in like Willie Nelson. I'm like, oh man, we went with Steph Curry, which is I feel good about, but I also feel like I should have been more prepared.
Oh,
to talk
I didn't
about
see
stuff.
Willie Nelson in there. Willie Nelson's a good one. We should do Willie Nelson and Rufus Wainwright too. We should try more. I think the whole fun in like thinking about a person is just getting outside your comfort zone, how you would necessarily describe a brand or a thing, and thinking about it in terms of different kinds of adjectives.
Right, like different things you associate with different people. Because the other like name, and I don't even know if he's from California, but when you first said things to him, I'm like, Tony Hawk, for whatever reason, that came to mind. And I'm like, that's a totally different like style and everything that goes with it.
So what I love about this is just like changing a few different words in the prompt. We added tall, so we've got like really, really tall redwoods now. I think versatile and playful actually gave us a really nice color scheme that was a little different and potentially a different color palette altogether just based on some of the inputs. Oh my gosh, I see John Muir in there, which is good, but I don't know how to describe John Muir because he's a historical figure.
I don't know too much, yeah. Historical would be one of the words then that we
Historical.
use.
I mean, that could actually work.
Could be interesting. Well, and playful, I feel like also changed really like what people were doing. Like they were very kind of stationary before, and I'm seeing like a lot more movement with the people. So I feel like it's interesting, yeah, just like kind of to see what the different words are like kind of adjusting in the images.
So we can do the same thing again. I'm gonna actually take off layered paper and concept art this time, but let's like use a few words from Willie Nelson, for example. Are you a Willie Nelson fan?
I don't know too much about Willie Nelson.
So my dad is a huge Willie Nelson fan. So he actually just recently saw Willie Nelson in concert and said like, you know, he has still got it. So I think like kind of rugged, he's a lot of fun. He's also really chill.
Okay.
And he's actually got a song right now out about California. I can't remember the exact lyrics, but let's like just add in rugged, fun, and chill and see how that changes some of the prompts.
Also, Luca coming in with Tony Hawk is from California, California legend.
Nice.
Okay. Backing me up.
I'm gonna change playful to rugged. And I'm gonna kind of add in chill instead of crowded, joyful music. I'm gonna try to change it to chill and just see how that changes our prompts. Magic prompting, generating music happening here. Okay, so it gives it a little bit more of a different vibe. Definitely.
I feel like the colors changed to a little bit more muted, to be honest, than what it was before. I feel like when it was playful, it was a little bit more vibrant, too.
Yeah, and I'm going to go ahead and put in fun versus versatile. See if that helps. Actually, I'm going to say relaxed, because you know what? Willie Nelson, he knows how to relax. All right, let's try relax. And still, like, kind of giving us a little bit, you're right, like, deeper look. I'm gonna go ahead and download some of these.
I like the trees on the...
Which one, on the right?
On the right, yeah, they're interesting.
All right, so I feel like we've done a lot now with this kind of look and feel already, but do we want to maybe take the more psychedelic one?
Yeah, I feel like I want to try some of the same words so that we have a little bit of contrast going on too. Should we do the same people and like kind of same words or riff on someone else?
Well, there's other questions we could ask. So one of the questions that I also like to ask is, so if we were gonna take a car or a mode of transportation to the music festival, what mode of transportation would you take?
Ooh. Bike.
Bike. And then how would you describe the bike? So like, I think of bikes as being...
There's either like cruisers, like kind of like more relaxed, or like if you're going for speed, right, kind of like, I don't know, because there's commuter bikes and then there's kind of like road bikes where you're kind of going a little bit faster for efficiency. But I'm probably not doing that for this music festival. I'm just gonna be chill on a cruiser.
I feel like when I'm on a cruiser bike, like I feel free. Like it is freeing feeling. So free, free-spirited even.
I like that one.
Yeah, I mean environmentally friendly. Okay, so let's try some of maybe these words and then hop over to Danielle's and try them with her seed.
Go with an open, free-spirited, amphitheater, the magical grove. What other words do we have?
So, free-spirited, environmentally friendly.
Okay.
Friendly, I think, is a good one.
And filled with a lot of, I'm trying to decide if I want to put like friendly people or like in a magical friendly grove, like where to kind of drop that in. Let's go with magical friendly grove. And we'll go from there, starting with that and see what we get.
It starts to change it a little bit.
It changes it a little bit. I think I'm liking this feel, like this gets a little space-like with this guy in the back.
I wonder about like adding free-spirited, because I think spirited might actually give it kind of a misty look, do you think?
Well, I have free-spirited in the front here, but maybe it's not quite magical. What if we did more like whimsical?
Yeah,
in here instead?
I like whimsical. I mean, there's a lot about riding a bike that feels very whimsical.
Yeah. I like how Natalie put in the chat an old hippie like Volkswagen bus.
Oh my gosh, we
good
should
language
totally
there.
do
That's
that.
actually pretty good.
That might actually be a fun next prompt to start on, is like thinking about what it would be like if we were taking the magic bus to the concert. Oh my gosh. Because that would also be very San Francisco.
That would. Okay, I removed warm tones just to see what I was getting, but I actually feel like I'm going to add that back because I did like what it was doing. And sometimes I kind of like to remove and just see, like if I've made a lot of changes to my prompt and I'm curious like what was the thing that kind of tweaked it, I might turn it off for a second or just like remove one of the words and then kind of go back and forth sometimes. But I liked also like your trees. I feel like I need to be more specific about the trees in here. Like you had tall trees before. I think I'm losing some of the trees, which I definitely want from my prompt as well. So the magical grove filled with, I think I'm gonna put tall trees.
Maybe tall redwoods.
Yes, okay. Tall redwood trees. There we go. I think that helped a lot.
I like where that's going. I really like that second one from the left with the trees look
here.
really tall. Yeah.
Yeah. I like the lighting kind of coming in here as well, so I'll save this one just in case. I'm feeling like we're having a lot of good options. I may soon, like I think we'll riff on these for a little, and then I may start adding some of mine to our library, like shared library as well.
Oh, that's a good call.
Yeah.
So while you're doing that, I'll add a few more because I'm thinking maybe we might want to just throw it out there and do something completely different. And like, so what would be a totally different option for this? Like, I do like the idea of the school bus or the Volkswagen bus. How would you describe a Volkswagen bus?
I think they're playful. I think of like summertime. Like I definitely think kind of more seasonality.
I think they're quirky.
Yeah, quirky's a great one.
And they can be loud. Super loud. Kind of uncomfortable.
Retro, or might be a good word.
Oh, I love retro. Okay, let's take these, and I'm actually going to compose a new prompt using the original words. Like, so we know it's a music amphitheater with a band in a magical tall redwood grove, but we're going to add in here summertime scene, quirky atmosphere. And I'm gonna actually at the back of just say kind of retro vibes and see what that gives us. And again, kind of just spitballing here with the words we're using and seeing what's built from it.
I also think it'd be fun to figure out, like, if we want, people always are like, even with this like magical whimsical, it's like, do we want creatures or like something? Like I could also see us like playing with just that as well, like taking an even more like super playful, like abstract kind of look at it.
Yeah, let's try whimsical creatures. And I feel like everything we've done so far is like some version of bright. So maybe we try like dark forest.
Or it could be like nighttime versus a lot of ours kind of in day.
And
although I do feel like mine, maybe some of them have a little bit of daytime or like dusk or I don't know, words, like evening.
Ooh, so we've got like this moon vibe going on here. It still does feel a lot like, so I think we need to come up with something a little bit different. So let's maybe try over here on the right-hand side, really playing around with these different styles. As you can see here, there's like there's popular movements, themes, techniques, effects, and materials and concepts. There's a lot to choose from over here. Do you have any go-tos, Danielle, that you like to use?
Let me look. From here, I mean, I like I used the synthwave one already on mine. I think like looking at materials, you did layered paper. I sometimes like to play with the technique, like a doodle or line drawing, like the lino cut one. Sometimes I feel like it just gives you like a little extra, like the hand-drawn look.
Like something totally different.
Yeah.
Let's try like line drawing and see just like what that does.
Yeah. And watercolor is also an interesting one to kind of get like a really drastically different look than I feel like at least we've been playing with so far.
So lino cut kind of gives us a little bit more of an illustrative look.
Yeah, I feel like it gives you just a little bit more of the like outlines on everything, a little bit of a darker and like detailed look, especially on like the trunks of the trees, I feel like.
I'm gonna add watercolor and see what that does.
Oh, in combo with line drawing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, so it starts to kind of gives you the lino cut like lines around it, but then also like a little bit of a watercolor fill. I'm digging this. Maybe we kind of come up with a style that's a little bit more, I feel like retro vibes is like a little bit being missed here. So I'm gonna actually take that and put it at the beginning and see if that changes how I'm getting stuff. So maybe like retro style. Maybe we add like 1960s retro
I was gonna say,
style.
I think with retro also, I feel like there's like kind of pops of color. Like I feel like there's a difference in the color that I might associate.
Let's see what that gives us. Ooh, so definitely a little bit more like a hand-drawn. I kind of like this.
Way more hand-drawn, yeah.
Feels a little bit like an illustration book. The trees over here are totally wild. I don't know what's going on with that.
The moon in the last one's funny too.
I know, the moon is pretty great. I'm going to download that one. I like that one a lot. Awesome. So I'm going to download some of these.
Hold on, I went over, if we go over to my screen really quickly. So I'm actually gonna work a little bit in Adobe Express, and then I think you may end up in like Photoshop. So we'll like kind of show two different tools of like how you might take your things from Firefly and bring them into the next phase of starting to like composite things and bring it together for social collateral. So we have a shared library already set up, and I have in here like some templates, just one that I kind of already saw that might be a good like poster option. And then for the assets, I just clicked on add assets and very quickly like brought in all the Firefly downloads that we already have, and that way they're on my computer and they're on yours, so you can access them, and we can just kind of share and start to see what we want to build out.
And so while Danielle's doing that, I'm actually doing the same thing. I'm just starting to drop all my stuff in the library. So you'll actually probably see it start to pop up in her library as well.
Yeah, and I think I might just start to dive into and just start to see, like, even in this template, I may end up looking for other ones as well, because we have specific kind of like dimensions. I'm trying to decide, like, do I want a social post where this is like the entire background image and I just layer stuff on top, or do I want it to be like cut off kind of and just kind of in the background, like just bits and pieces of it showing. So like, I'm just gonna see, like, what do we have in here that I might want to replace it with. So I'll go over to the libraries panel. I already clicked replace for this image, and then the Redwood Grove, which is our library, and now all of those assets are here, and I know yours are still loading in. But since these were all kind of like center aligned, I'm just curious, maybe I'll click this one.
Oh, interesting. So it just pops right into that template in Express. Yeah. So Danielle's going to be working in Express. I'm going to work in Photoshop, so you'll kind of see a little bit of a different approach to each one of these.
Yeah, and I do have to rotate this because the one previously was angled differently. So let's kind of expand this out. I feel like I'm only going to be able to get a little bit in this kind of view. So this may not be the best template for what I'm kind of thinking about. So I may play with another one, or I could kind of riff on this, send this like to the back, and kind of start to like layer things on top of it. But I think I'm going to check out some of the other templates they have here as well. Let it save, let it do its thing. Yeah, and I think Natalie said, I think for yours too, like, what about pop art that was popular in the 60s?
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, I mean, we can also, one of the nice things about doing this sort of exercise is that it helps with writing the prompts, but it also helps with thinking about things like the font you might choose within the application to kind of help to enhance the style that you're showing your client for the particular image that you're pairing it with. Like, sometimes I think about actually picking a font is a lot like picking a prompt, right? Like, if you think about the feeling and the words you would use, so there's a lot of really similar correlations there to that.
Yeah, and I decided I'm gonna go through and maybe find an Instagram post template that already exists, knowing that we kind of already have that square format, and just kind of look through here. I'm seeing seasonal, travel, kind of minimal ones. And I can do that straight in the editor here, or if I go back to home really quickly, I may also just search for like music festival overall and see what kind of templates there are. Here we go. Sound waves. I could do something really simple to start with, which is basically I could just have the background kind of like in the back and then put some text on top, like maybe change out like this icon and do some different things like layers in here. So I might start riffing on that. I'm just gonna replace this back in our libraries. Let's see, Redwood Grove. Was there one of these mystical, magical ones that we liked most? Oh, I'm seeing a lot of yours now too. Okay, I'm gonna have to go to view all. We have a lot in here to play from. I mean,
that's the nice thing is, like, when working with Firefly, it's so fast. You can iterate so fast. So, like, people talk about, like, you know, what are the advantages of using AI? I mean, one of them is just the number of options you have. I mean, like, a lot of times in photography, people talk about, like, what is the secret to a good photograph? It's taking a lot of photographs. So it's kind of like photographs taking a lot of like ideas and just building them out really, really quickly. And it gives you so many more opportunities.
Well, I feel like the cool thing too is then if we have these two drastically different versions, like I think if we go over to your screen, you're starting to kind of pull these in so we can see them a little bit closer. We could take that to the client and start to say, this is what I meant by these things, like which one of these is resonating with you, or what are the things that you're liking about each of these. And you do that a lot faster than you could before. Like before, you'd just be going and like spending quite a bit of time to make these.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times when you're kind of coming up with a style for a client and you're working through all these different options, it's really a conversation that you're having, right? Like, you're trying to figure out what's inside of that person's head and get it out into their actual, their brand collateral and their poster or their social media post. And sometimes it's kind of a little bit of a game of back and forth. And that's what's really nice about generative AI and Firefly, just this ability to be able to come up with lots and lots of ideas to have those conversations. And I'm just scaling some of these. Right now I kind of have 4 different looks. The 2 on the right sort of are kind of looking similar. I'm gonna probably go back through and see if I can find one that's a little bit more different, just to give that variety so that there's a really good conversation with the client about like what it is that's resonating or what sort of options they like, kind of being able to combine different things. I'm gonna actually I'm gonna replace this one on top with this one because I kind of like this sort of like weird tree growth thing. And so as I'm starting to put this together, one of the things I really enjoy doing is pairing these words that we use with the prompts with, the text. So we know that it's going to say the Redwood Grove Music Festival. And this is kind of a little bit of the difference between working in Photoshop versus Express. Express sort of starts with an idea and you start to modify it, whereas I'm kind of working with a blank canvas here. So Redwood Grove Music Festival. I'm just gonna start with highlighting it and going up here to my fonts. And I've got, oh my gosh, a lot of fonts to pick from. It's always so daunting, oh my gosh. So I am a big fan of Adobe fonts. And sometimes I just like to start from scratch instead of just looking at the list of what I already have. So going up to actually my Creative Cloud little icon in the upper right hand corner, I can actually go from where I've been working in the library that we have to a place where I can actually look at what fonts I have activated on my Creative Cloud subscription and go to browse more fonts. And this is always a ton of fun. I love going to the Adobe Fonts website because it's kind of like being in a candy store and just being able to pick stuff. So I'm thinking about some of the words we were using when we were actually doing our prompting. And this is where the tie-in comes in, right? Danielle, do you remember, was this psychedelic? Did you use the word psychedelic to describe this one? This upper
No,
left
I
hand?
think I had magical, maybe whimsical in there as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So using that same exact word from the prompt actually to kind of look at how we might search for a font on Adobe Fonts. Whimsical. I'm going to try that out, see what we get. We have this one from Design Army. I love Sans. I'm not feeling that one as much. Let's try another one.
We have a question coming through in the chat around how long until the tools come out of beta and can we use them for marketing? I don't know if you want to speak a little bit towards that.
Yeah, so we're still working on that strategy. One of the things that's been really exciting about Firefly is that we put it out in beta so that we could get feedback on how people would want to use the product. So we've heard pretty loud and clear that people want to be able to use this stuff commercially with their clients. And so we're working on that strategy. It's still TBD. It's something we're in the process of doing, but it hasn't quite gotten to the point where we can use it commercially with clients yet. So that's part of the reason why we're doing this in terms of kind of a bit of a mood boarding sort of exercise. This may not be the final collateral that we would deliver to a client, but it's a way to get feedback on the words we're using and the styles that are really resonating with them so that we can develop it and use it for things like also picking a font or picking other imagery that they might want. And so it's kind of a jumping off point, really. So just going back to my fonts, I still haven't found one that I'm really super stoked on. Let's see what we have here. One of the things I love about Adobe Fonts is that similar to Firefly, you actually have these kind of styles over here in the left where it kind of gives you ideas before you necessarily have to dive into them. So I'm going to use brush pen as an example. And as you can see here, you start to get kind of these more whimsical type of fonts that you might want to use. And so I'm thinking, I really kind of like Air Royale. So I'm gonna view family, quickly activate one font, hit OK. And what you will actually see is so this is going to be called CinemaScript. So over here, I will actually look for CinemaScript. in my really long list, as you can see, I have a font problem. A really bad font problem.
I'm like, meanwhile, I'm in Express, and like my fonts are very different options here. I mean, I was starting to play with, so I have like one of the images in the background here, and then started to take the text, and very quickly, like there's this option to kind of have like curved text, which was one thing I decided to just like mess around with, and it made me think, well, maybe I can put something kind of in the center of this text, like maybe a little like tree icon, like little drawing or something like that. I'd probably want like the music, like the festival date on here as well. So I'm gonna add a little bit more text too of just like when this is happening. But I think based off of the layout like of this image, like at first I sort of had like bold text kind of in the center, but I don't want the whole thing like fully center aligned. I'm not, for now, that's not what I'm thinking. So I'm just gonna go over to like design assets. Or actually, there's some shapes in here too, and I already typed in like redwood tree, and I was thinking of maybe pulling, I don't know, something like this in. I'm gonna change the color of this though, scale it down, and just start to play with something here. I don't know, it kind of looks like a little bit of like an emblem or something they can start to like mess around with.
Oh yeah.
And like put like more of like a bold, like the date that people should kind of know about this thing. But dang, I'm really into this like layered, textured, like cutout image you made on the in the back here.
That's definitely one of my favorite styles on Firefly. I love the textured, layered look that you can get from it. It's just so unique and something so different than you can kind of find anywhere else. And it would be such a hard style to be able to do by making it yourself. Like, it would take so long. It's saving so much time.
Yeah.
And so as you can see here, I'm just kind of adding some text to each of these to sort of pair them up with different feels.
I'm like, what dates did we say this was? July. Okay.
So I'm just curious, like maybe I'd love to hear from like the community, but how many of you have used Firefly for mood boarding so far? Is this something that you have any experience with? I'd love to hear like other ideas around like how this works conceptually. This, for me, I feel like Firefly is just such a great like serendipitous generator of ideas. And so I'd love to hear more and more ideas from the community on what you all have been using this stuff for. Because for me, it's not just about the images. It's also about like the fonts and the colors. I mean, like even here, I would probably start to build out a little bit of a color palette around like what Firefly produced here. You could bring a color palette from this. You could bring textures from it. There's so many different things you can start to like build off of this, based on just what Firefly produced for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I see in the comments, let's see, your font list looks just as chaotic as mine. I like that.
My font list is a little bit of a like hot mess right now, so apologies for that. But I mean, like that's kind of the reality of being a designer, right? We all love fonts. And sometimes you collect a few too many. I mean, that's one of the reasons I love Adobe fonts is because, like, as you can see here, you can activate and unactivate them as much as possible. But I don't really unactivate them very often. I'm sure someone is judging me for that out there, but I just really enjoy having them all at my disposal all the time. And that's one of my favorite things about the Creative Cloud, honestly, is the ability to be able to kind of try lots of fonts all of the time. And sometimes it can be kind of overwhelming. And actually, as you can see here, I'm actually able to kind of sort my font list here in Photoshop based on some of the different filters that they have. Decorative is a fun one, for example, where you can get kind of some crazy ones if you want, but trying them there on canvas is one of the advantages. So just kind of going through, making some changes. Again, I don't necessarily think it has to be like perfectly designed for something that you're just showing to a client. Like, just getting their reaction is so important and so helpful.
Yeah, and I'm just starting to mess around with like this layout a little bit more. A couple of the details in here, the date and where it is. I liked it the other way. There we go.
I know we're almost at time, but one of the things I did want to kind of like talk a little bit about before we jumped off is just like we really we're doing text to image this whole time, but there's a lot of really fun mood boarding kind of stuff you can do with the text effects module as well. And so before we go, I'm gonna just for fun put in Redwood, Whimsical Grove. And actually my text is gonna be Redwood. And just see what we can do with that. Sometimes it provides with like just a new and different idea that I would have never thought of. So generate. Oh, I spelled. Woo, designers writing words. Oh wow, so that actually gives us a pretty cool effect there.
I like the W in this one.
The W is really fun with, and then it's just kind of all these like little gnarled bits and pieces. I think that's this kind of experiment is just, I think, also really helpful for thinking about how you might write the prompts too. Let's try.
And I know, like, Albert was responding a little bit to your, like, how question to the chat, which was, like, how do you use Firefly today? And Albert was saying to generate elements to be used in Composite and Photoshop. So definitely a lot of, like, compositing, generating those assets. Let's see if there's anything else in here.
I'm such a big fan of compositing. I feel like it's such a magic art.
Yeah.
Seeing it all come together. I think that for especially being able to use the different elements and kind of getting that vibe and getting things that you might not be able to create really quickly, like how long would it take you to actually composite something that looks like this?
Yeah, well, and for those of you that have seen the new like generative fill, I feel like that's also like kind of a different way to composite now, and kind of think about like adding elements into your images. So that's also like there's kind of a lot of cool different ways to be generating images and doing compositing.
And so yeah, I mean, I know that we talked a lot about generative fill before the two of us came on today, but if you are just tuning in and you're not familiar, we did launch generative fill today, which is the ability to be able to kind of go in and generate things right there in place by masking different parts of the image out, which is a lot of fun. But for example, we'll do a really quick one where maybe we put a hat on her.
And it matches this style too, which we were just chatting about before this, because I feel like I was playing with the one where it's more of kind of like a painted, illustrated look, and I was like adding someone's like hair to the person, and it looked pretty good.
Wow, that looks pretty darn good, doesn't it? That's a pretty good hat. So yeah.
Yeah, I want to see the other hat options.
Oh,
very fuzzy hats. Oh, that's okay. That's an interesting one.
I put in puffy hat, so I guess it's really using a lot of just like taking a lot of liberties with the word puffy. And then yeah, so as you can see, there's a lot of fun stuff to check out on the Firefly website. We're always updating it. That's the other thing. Like, there's things that are being added all the time. We've have generative recolor. Obviously, there's some things that are coming soon too, and so we encourage you to take a look to see what is going to be here in the future and checking back often. But today, our go-to has been text to image for kind of putting together these ideas around like creating styles and prompts for how we might work better with clients.
Yeah, because generative fill, it's basically like new, like try it out on if you're in the like beta. That one is in like Photoshop, so that if you are like a Photoshop user, really fun to like check out how you might use that within the application. And then like Samantha mentioned, all of these other ones, like you'll see a little tag that says in exploration on the Firefly site, so you can actually see like what is it that like we're working on, like text to pattern or text to vector, text to template, sketch to image. Like all these are very cool, and you'll just continue to see them like pushed out that you guys can play with and give us feedback.
So we just gave this little critter a skateboard.
Oh yes.
Maybe we'll also give him a little cap.
He needs like a little tiny hat or like a bow. Maybe a bow.
Oh wait, hold on. Sorry, I was a little trigger happy there. It was just too exciting for the moment. I'm regenerating.
And Brian was asking, is generative fill available for the Photoshop Beta on Mac? So it is available on Photoshop Beta. So definitely check it out. Yeah, if you go into your Creative Cloud app and you go over to the beta apps in here. Yeah, beta apps on the left-hand side of your Creative Cloud. Head over here to your beta apps, then you can grab the latest version of Photoshop Beta, and that's where you'll be able to test out the new generative fill. And if you don't have it, you can definitely just go to the Firefly site. But yeah, appreciate all of you who have tuned in today. We're like really excited that we were able to spend the time. Thank you again, and check out the new beta. Check out Generative Fill. Go over to Firefly and leave us some feedback and play around with the tools.
And just have fun. I mean, that's kind of the whole point in this, and that's what's been really fun about working on this particular project is that it's been as much fun working on the project as it is actually using the product. And so it's really exciting to see all of the amazing things that you all make. So continue to keep making things with Firefly and contribute it back and share it on social media and put it into our gallery.
We like seeing it all.
We
yeah.
love seeing it all. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Have a good one.